What up, sports fans? Montana Roland here, back with another edition of your favorite, the Salmon Roll.
Yes!
Sam is in the house.
What's
We are
up,
ready
bro?
to go.
All right, let's do this, all right?
Week 5 of the NFL, and wow, was it a great one.
Of course, it was a great one. Of course,
Let's start with Monday.
Please, let's start with anything but the Eagles. Can we do
Anything
that?
but
Can we
the
start
Eagles.
with anything?
Well, real quick,
but
what's the Eagles' record?
The Eagles' record at this
forgot.
point is 1-15.
Okay.
1-15.
So
all right.
Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck, yeah,
He's not
maybe,
looking too bad.
yeah. I think at this point, $100 million for our backup, Michael Vick, and
You
Andrew
know
Luck.
what?
That shouldn't be a problem. Yeah, absolutely. I like it. Thanks for.
All right,
We can move on.
we'll move on.
Let's do it.
Monday night.
Whew.
The first time the Lions have a Monday night football game in 10 years. They are now 5-0. Are they for real or what?
For real isn't even the question. I mean, 5-0. You're for real in this league if you're 5-0, especially if you've beaten a couple of teams that they have. Remember, week 1 they won in Tampa. That's not an easy
No,
win. Right there,
never.
you started to feel for this team, but you knew that Bears game, those divisional games, were going to matter the most. Bears come into town. They rough up Jay Cutler, who played very well, by the way. But
9
I'm
false
sorry.
starts.
Look, we're all going to talk
The crowd
about.
was just ridiculous. I've never
Detroit
heard a crowd like that.
was absolutely foaming at the mouth about this
Insane.
game. And look, and it worked out. I mean, those false starts, when you get 9 false
Nine
starts
false
on the Bears.
starts.
That was a game, and of course the play to Calvin Johnson where he is just literally pushing defenders off of him on the way to the end zone. Guy's amazing. And the breakout game for Javid Best, who people have been waiting now
88-yard run to
2
the
years for
house.
this guy to do it, and he's looking like another star out of Cal. I love what Javid Best did. The Lions right now are just that team that's a lot of fun to watch because, of course, we've been used to them just being terrible year after year after year. But 5-0, you cannot say anything. 5-0, and now we're all waiting for Thanksgiving against the Packers.
Wow, speaking of fun to watch, Tim Tebow got into the game this week. I'd love to bring in our the man, the myth himself.
Wow.
Vic the Rich
Let's
Jacobs.
get Vic over here. Vic, get over here for Tim Tebow, all right? I know you like this guy, but that absolutely changed my Sunday afternoon, Tim Tebow.
Let me tell you one thing. I've been a Tebow believer because you know what? When he goes to the Philippines and performs circumcisions, that's a man, and he's a leader.
The chosen one.
This man. He's not a missionary. He's a leader.
Okay, now Vic, he might be a leader, but there's a lot of people out there who are questioning what he does. Now, we all know that this Broncos team is frankly going nowhere. Right? Okay, so
1-4.
So they start with Orton. Orton does all right here and there, but this team is clearly scuffling. Against the Chargers, the game seems over. Tebow comes in. He completely sparks the team. Granted, I think he was 4 of 10 in the game. I mean, it's not like he lit it up on the stat sheet necessarily, but that last play showed me
Oh
something.
my God,
the way
you
he
didn't even know.
extended that play, scrambled around, throws it to the back of the end zone, and frankly, I thought his receiver that was in the end zone was a little out of sorts. He kind of stepped out of bounds. I think if he made a better play on that ball, they really could have stolen that game from
As
the
a diehard
Chargers.
Charger fan, I'm watching that game on the edge of my seat, and I'm like, holy crap, the chosen one might be pulling this off. And you know what? He almost did.
Tim Tebow has taken a team that was dead meat in cleats, the Denver Broncos, and gave them life. This team hasn't had life since the first 6 games of the McDaniels era when they won their first 6.
Look,
Since
they
they won their
were
first 6.
6-0. McDaniels
You're like-
was running around, even though Hartman knew this guy was terrible.
Hartman knows stats.
Speaking of Hartman,
He knows his
and
stats.
speaking of leaders,
He is the stat.
this guy worked for the coach, Al Davis.
Coach Davis.
Steve,
Coach
come
Davis.
on,
Please, Steve Hartman.
Come on.
Join us.
Hartman.
Join us, Hartman.
A hot dog and a soda story to share with us as well.
You want me to share all my Al Davis
Well, let's go with
stories?
the first day, right? You were hired by the Raiders,
Right.
Steve, but I don't think Al knew that he had hired you, right?
Well, what happened was in 1984, they were coming off their Super Bowl victory, smashing victory over the Redskins. I joined him in July of 84, so everyone's showing off their new rings. I
Of course,
figure I'm going to get a
absolutely.
few of those. Never did, by the way. They haven't won
Still
a Super
waiting
Bowl
for
since
one.
I got hired. But anyway, so very first game of the year, we go to Houston to play the Oilers. Warren Moon making his debut coming down from the
Nice.
Canadian Football League. So the game's a pretty one-sided game, but in certain stadiums, Al would actually sit in the press box, and this is one of those games. So I was basically sitting about 5 seats to the right of Al Davis. It was like the henchman there, you know, like Al and his guys, and I'm at the end.
Okay.
So I'm just looking around thinking, how cool is this? I mean, I'm sitting here with
Great
Al.
gig, yeah.
I can't get
And
any better.
so I'm looking around the Astrodome thinking, are they going to turn on the lights in here? God, it was the dingiest place of all time. All of a sudden, I'm looking down to where Mr. Davis is sitting, and he's just looking at me. He's like looking down the line. And I sort of got off guard. So I started to get a little paranoid, and then I started looking down the way, and he's like staring at me. So I lean over to this guy Tom Grimes, who I work with there. I say, he's looking at me like he doesn't even know who I am. And he goes, "Oh, he knows who you are. He's just playing with you right now." I'm like, really? I don't know about that. So then I ignore him. Then I look back one more time, and Davis leans back and does one of these.
Get over here.
Uh-oh. Get over here now.
Something's up.
Get
So
over
I
here.
walk over and I'm like, yes, Mr. Davis? He goes, get me a hot dog and a Diet Coke. And I'm like, okay.
Sure. Never ran
So I'm in
so
the press
fast.
box, so I get the Diet Coke and a hot dog. I don't know what he wants on it, so I grab packets of mustard and relish, whatever, and I just put it next to him. He didn't even look up at me. I just put it next to him, and I went back to my seat. So the game ends. Everybody else is heading down to the field. We win the game easy against a bad Oilers team. But I got to do all to get the stat sheets. I'm low man on the totem pole. So I get back to where Al had been sitting. Not one bite out of the hot dog, not one sip out of the Diet Coke. He never moved in the spot. He never even touched it. So that was the way that I learned, is that everything was a test. You know, it's a test of loyalty. It's how committed are you to being a Raider? It's the commitment, the excellence, the pride and poise. You know, it's the will, just win,
Just
baby.
win, baby.
So that was really, in those days, what it was
test.
all
It's a
about.
test.
But after a few more tests, so I ended up leaving. And after 4.5 years of being tested.
But he remembered you
Done.
always. But he remembered you always.
He always
Mr.
did.
Davis,
In
right?
fact, just quick story, because from the time I left the Raiders in '88, I didn't really see him again until 1999. So that's 11 years later. I was covering the NFL owners meetings when they're trying to decide who's going to be the new expansion team. And I see Mr. Davis. I'm doing television work by then. I see Mr. Davis, so I'm thinking, wow, he's not even going to remember me. It's been a long time. I was a PR guy. So I walk up to him, I go, Mr. Davis, Steve Harvey, good to see you. And he looks around and he goes, Steven, how are you? Look at you. You're like a big radio TV guy these days. I'm like, well, just trying to feed the family and everything like that. So later on, I was set up to do a live shot. So I'm outside, and apparently some of the owners were going to dinner. So I see these owners walk by, and there comes Davis with his wife Carol, with a walker, couldn't you walk with her? She's like 50 feet behind him. So he's walking up, he stops, he goes, hey, honey, remember him, Steve Harvey? Look at him, big TV guy. And I'm just thinking, is this the same guy that used to MF me just about every day when I worked for the Raiders?
That was out of love.
But in his
Out of
world,
love.
once a Raider, always a Raider. He proved that. All the years after I left the Raiders, he could not have been nicer.
I have one
to me.
question, Steve. What was
Yes.
that cologne that he used to wear?
Well, we found out. I had not known. It was, what was it? We found out.
Aramis.
Was it
Aramis.
Panther?
It was Aramis.
Aramis.
The thing about his cologne,
I used to wear Aramis.
one very quick story. It was off season. There was a really smoking hot Raiderette. Her name was Tina.
Oh, sure,
she was a
of course.
blonde,
This
and
is a story
she and I were friends, and they had photos were going to come out of the girls. And so when I first worked for the Raiders, my first couple of years, my desk actually had its back to the wall, to the entrance into the room.
Okay.
So I've got pictures of her laid out on my desk, and I'm on the phone with her, and she's like, how the pictures look, and I'm like, wow, I mean, they look really good. So I'm sitting, and all of a sudden I'm like going, all of a sudden I was like, holy mackerel, and I look up, and he's standing. I swear I went in almost full cardiac arrest. So I look up, and I'm like this. He's just looking at me, and I'm like, hey, I got to call you back. I put the phone down, and then I look back. He'd already walked out of the room. Never said a word.
Wow.
Got the pictures all over the place.
Missing, or were they still there?
No, they were still there. Well, I took some of them home. But, he would love to play with your mind. So at that point, you're like, I would much rather him say, what the F's going on? He didn't say anything. He just walked out.
Look who says Pat O'Brien.
Look at this right
Pat
here.
O'Brien. Who knew it?
Exciting time. We get
Long live Al Davis. Long live Al Davis.
Just win, baby.
All right,
Just
Sam,
win.
for all the
Well,
Chargers.
definitely the Chargers. They're on a bye this week. They got a big game coming up. Tim Tebow starts in Miami coming up as well. So we'll get back to you, Sam.
We'll do it next week. All right, I'll be back from New York. All right, we'll see if the Eagles are 1-5 by then. I'm really looking forward to it. Big game against the Redskins. Although soon they're not even going to be big games anymore for the Eagles because it's going nowhere quick. But this week it's all about the Raiders. All right, the Raiders and Al Davis. That's all.
You will be missed.